Hello, YouTube, and welcome to the In Your Head podcast. This is a special Christmas edition of the In Your Head podcast. I am, as always, your host, Jesse, and with me today, host of the Party of One podcast and the Talking Nog podcast, Jeff Stormer. How are you, sir?
I am very good. I am happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on.
'Tis the season.
Indeed,
I'm
it
feeling
is.
holly and jolly.
We are all decked out, ready
Out.
to rock and roll for the holiday season.
Yep, I am dressed to the nines. We are both dressed to the nines.
This
I feel a little upstaged, but it's fine.
I put probably too much effort into this.
I don't believe there
awesome
is such a
sweater. So I get one chance a year to break this thing out, and this is what I'm going to do with it. So my camera probably doesn't like the glowing lights, but we're going to get through it. So as always, I welcome everybody to the podcast with our statute of initiation.
Yes.
So what can you tell us that you may have done that you aren't quite proud of?
So I can't. So
names can be changed to protect the innocent.
Details are being withheld to protect the guilty, because I don't know if there is a statute of limitations. But
oh boy,
some friends and I stole a neighborhood watch sign when I was in just out of high school.
Okay.
They didn't catch us. They weren't watching that carefully. But we just wanted to do an illegal thing.
Okay.
And this seemed like it wasn't illegal in so much that but it seemed like the safest illegal thing to do. And it was our teenage act of rebellion. So we left late at night. We found this this is protected by the neighborhood watch. We're watching. And we just it was up probably it was on a pole, it was on a street sign about maybe 7.5 feet. And we're a bunch of 4'11" teenagers, right? We're still growing into being full-sized adults. So for most of it, there's two people standing on each other's shoulders. It's 11 o'clock at night. I am on lookout duty, which is me looking down the street. My brother is behind me looking the other way up the street, and if we see a car start to turn, we yell, "Car!" And then the person has to hop off of their shoulders, put them down, and then we are all... And then, as though we thought that this was not suspicious, there are 4 teenagers at 11 o'clock at night standing around a dangling neighborhood watch sign we're just hanging out. We're just having teenage adventures, living our lives. And then we stole it, and it was in I believe it might still be in our friend's closet. But they did not put up another neighborhood watch sign. I believe that they realized that their neighborhood watch was not effective. But they put up a watch for children sign, or some other one of those other pedestrian signs,
right?
Where it's not really announcing any sort of yield zone or anything. Just an ordinary watch for crosswalks or something like that.
My other personal favorite was slow children sign.
Yeah.
That's always a good one.
Yeah,
that would have been a nice one.
Something like that. It was something to address the fact that we probably should have caught the people stealing our neighborhood watch sign. They didn't feel comfortable replacing it to announce that there was still a neighborhood watch. So that's my crime.
Was there still at the time when this had happened, or was it the neighborhood watch was long dead and we were just doing this to
I
prove
have
a point?
to assume I had never heard anything of a neighborhood watch. I had never gotten flyers for neighborhood watch meetings.
Yeah.
So if it existed, they didn't invite us, and it wasn't our block wasn't represented. But they didn't catch us, and they didn't replace the sign with another neighborhood watch sign. So I assume if it wasn't already dead, I take credit for killing that neighborhood watch.
Well, it's a twofer, at least. I think they were big in the 80s.
I assume
but they kind of tapered off.
Yeah, this one, as long as I had lived in Town Redacted, they had this neighborhood watch sign. So, I assume it had been there long before I moved there.
Right.
And they just hadn't replaced the sign. Maybe we did them a favor.
You just moved you moved it along.
Yeah.
Maybe the township said, you know what? As long as we got the sign posted, we really just we can't
should
stop.
We should just take advantage of the sign.
Oh man, well, I had heard from neighborhood, about neighborhood watches back in the day that the problem with them was that some people took they took it too far. There was a
Absolutely.
bit of vigilantism that had come up. I mean, I know there's a Family Guy episode about it where they're just like, we're the neighborhood watch, and they just went out and
There's the Always Sunny where they try to start the neighborhood watch, and I think they become the Urban Angels maybe, and they get berets and like tank tops and collapsible billy clubs.
Oh God, see that, and maybe that's why they stopped.
It could be.
I think, yeah, okay. I think we
didn't, and there was I choose to believe that we were the urban vigilantes that stood up to this reckless abuse of authority and brought down the man. But really, we were some shitty teenagers that like could have just been drinking in our house, but said like, let's go make mischief, and then nobody fucking noticed in the world.
Well, you know, it's.
I should have asked if I could swear.
No, it's fine. Everybody else does, so we've gone with it. I'm
right.
not really stopping it. So it's not a clean podcast. So
Fair.
we go right on ahead with it. But
Fair.
It's at least the most ironic crime that I think I've had so far on here. So
we were artists.
That's perfect. I've had Grand Theft, which doesn't really fit to like the small crime that you might not be proud, marginal crime or something like that. But it's the most ironic, I've got to say, of what I've gotten.
That was what we were aiming for, and I'm pretty glad that we hit it.
Angsty teenagers.
Yeah.
Make a good headline if you got caught. I think it would have been.
Angsty teenagers stealing neighborhood watch sign. Caught by police, not by neighborhood watch.
Exactly. So, I know you have a couple podcasts.
Yes.
Your main podcast is the Party of One podcast.
Yes.
And you have a holiday podcast.
Yes, once a year, with the Talking Nog Cast. It is the world's only eggnog enthusiast podcast, probably. Not that I've looked that up. This is blind guess, but
it's your story and you're sticking to it.
Yes,
that's it.
It is maybe the world's only eggnog enthusiast podcast. It's certainly the only one in which zero research was done before we record. Though I'm actually breaking that this year because I got a question that I actually wanted to answer honestly, but for the most part, I refused to. I said I'll do anything for this podcast except any research. Okay.
So for my viewers out there who are watching this now and have been wondering what is sitting in front of me, based on the Talking Nog podcast, we are going to, after this interview process, we are going to do a blind taste test. Well, he's going to do a blind taste test.
I'm very excited about it.
These are all eggnogs fresh out of the carton. They're all brand new, poured when he got here, so they're all nice and probably still cold in that respect. To see what he thinks of each one. It's 4 different brands, so he's going to see exactly what he thinks, and then after he's tasted all 4 and said how he feels about each one, we're going to reveal to him which ones they are, so we can get a true test of what nogs are out there and the quality of the different nogs that you may be able to find. So, this is our tri-state area check of what we could find. So there's not a lot of nog available, unfortunately. If you make your own, I'm sure there's so many people out there who just make their own. I'm not that crafty. And I've never made it, so I didn't want to kill this man. So
I appreciate that.
We stuck with the bottle.
It would be an eventful podcast. Hey, check out this podcast. Jeff died.
I killed a man.
Yep.
So, he's not gonna be able to plug me if I kill him in the midst of the podcast. So.
Good point. I like where your head's at.
I'm trying to think ahead to try to get the podcast out there. So tell my viewers and everybody else watching a little bit about the Party of One podcast.
Sure. Party of One is an actual play RPG podcast focused on 2-player role-playing games. Every week, I sit down with a guest one-on-one, and we play through a short, self-contained RPG session. So, if you've ever wondered what Dungeons & Dragons looks like with a single character, or if you've ever wondered what a tabletop role-playing game looks like with designed for exactly 2 people, or if you've ever wondered why role-playing games insist that they have to be played with like 4 to 6 people, Party of One might be for you.
So, what kind of guests do you normally have on there? What sort of,
We have guests of all walks of life. I always say, like, people often ask how one gets on Party of One, and my answer is always, I don't know, ask. Shoot me an email. So we've had podcasters, game design. We have a lot of podcasters and a lot of game designers, mostly because those 2 people often have microphones. We've had, let's see, had professional wrestlers. Some people that just email me because they don't have anything to plug and they just feel like playing a game. We've had a few of those. Uh, Actors and actresses, podcasters, game designers, streamers, all sorts of people. People
Nice.
that love role playing games is the common thread.
Right. And what I'm finding out nowadays, especially with a lot of the podcasts that are out there, is there's so many more people into the, I guess, quote unquote, geek culture,
Yes.
if you will, to get more into the board games, magic, and things like that, that it's not as difficult to find some of these people that are into this.
The astounding thing, the astounding fact and figure that I've heard recently and that I've seen a lot of people throwing out and that I throw out a lot now is Wizards of the Coast did studies recently on how people discover on people that are interested in Dungeons and Dragons. And about half of those people get into it because of streamed or podcast games. And I find that fascinating as a person that does that.
Wow.
That, like, it's having an actual impact on the hobby.
Yeah. No, I'm actually surprised because, I mean, I've seen a little bit of it myself, and I guess there's so many, everything gets streamed nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, any game, any activity you do, people stream it out there.
Right.
And there's so much of it going on that I guess it helps to get into an activity to say, here's what's going on, here's how this thing is done, and now I can go see it and see how people play.
Right.
Especially because now the stigmas of D&D are gone, thank God. It used to be, oh, you're playing D&D. Oh, it was, it used to just be the running joke, but now it's like, oh, now people just realize it's a bunch of guys sitting around laughing, joking, having a fun time, and you have you live out that story, and I guess it's gotten rid of that, which is good that podcasters like yourself are helping to clear that up for everybody.
I've had coworkers talk to me and be like, "Hey, what's D&D like?" And it's been kind of cool, and because they've seen it on like Stranger Things or Community, and they're like, "Hey, I'm interested in that." And I'm like, "Cool, let's play a game sometime. Like, I can tell you about like what it's like, or we can just do it." And having podcasts and having streams and things to point to and be like, "This is what it looks like sometimes." If this is something you're interested in, you might be interested in this hobby. It's a cool way to like like you said, it takes away some of that stigma of like, I don't know, people being like, what do you do? I can be like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what role playing is.
Right. And it's always easier to watch something to get into it as opposed to trying me sitting down going, well, here's these 5 books of stuff and this is what D&D is. It's so much easier to say this is, watch and kind of learn, because there's not a lot of, there's no D&D TV shows.
Right.
So, streamers, now that they have everything, even getting into a game, when a new game comes out, I'm like, do I want to play this? Let me go online,
check that stream,
see what the streams are like, and now this is what it is, and now boom, I'm hooked, or this looks like a fun game that I'd like to play. It's a shame for most of the games that people play that are puzzle games or something like this, and they just stream the whole thing. I'm like, well, that wasn't any fun to watch.
Right.
Now,
now you've got the solution.
Right, now I'm not going to play that game, so that totally kills it. So, how did you transfer into? How did the Talking Nog come about? I should say, how did that seasonal love come about?
I love Christmas. It is my favorite day of the year. It actually came about because I was talking about Christmas with some coworkers at my day job, and I was talking to them, and one of them, and they had just been asking some questions about a podcast that I was recording, and they were like, "So when are you recording an eggnog podcast?" Because I am vocal in my love of eggnog, and I said, "Right now."
Yeah.
I said this year, and so like I went back to my desk and I registered. I did the thing that I knew would convince me to actually do it, which is I registered a Twitter account for Talking Nogcast. So I registered a Twitter and I registered a SoundCloud under the free plan, because I said the one thing I will never do for Talking Nog is pay any money for it. So I threw these things together. I told people to email me some questions, and then I recorded an eggnog podcast.
And that's it. So how many years running?
This is the second year. There was a lot of debate. There was a lot of debate after last year of whether or not I should or would do a second year. But here we are, and now I'm trapped. So,
well, if one episode hooks people and keeps you coming around, that's not too bad.
Gotta leave them wanting more.
This is episode 8 here, and hopefully I can hook some people as well as one episode of talking about Nog does.
You just got to do one episode a year about a topic that nobody loves, but everybody feels like they should. That's the key. That's how you hook them. That's how you hook a full 20 people.
Well, if that's what it takes, I gotta start knocking some stuff off this list here for sure. So, talking about nog, here we go. We are, in front of us is all 4 cups of nog. We have A, B, C, and D. So as Jeff takes a sample and an enjoyment, we have some nutmeg and cinnamon off to the side here for him to
eggnog essentials.
Exactly, you gotta have your seasonings. So he's gonna have the chance to season and try and tell me what he thinks about each one as far as each one goes. So here is sample A. So
sample A.
So he's going with some cinnamon. Did I leave the cap on? That is my apologies. Well, now we know another thing is fresh.
Yep. Now we're certain that the cinnamon is fresh.
Does the cinnamon go bad?
I don't think so. I can't imagine it does.
Only if you eat it by per tablespoon, I think, thanks to the internet. I think that's the only way for cinnamon to be terrible.
Put a little sprinkling of cinnamon.
There we go. And that, oh god, that might even be sealed too. Let's see. Yep. Yes, that fresh everything here, folks. This is
our commitment to you, the viewer, so that you know that we're not phoning this in. You're thinking, oh, they just had cinnamon and eggnog.
Yeah, I mean, why would I have open cinnamon and open nutmeg in my house? Which I had, but they just weren't open. So that's how much cinnamon and nutmeg I actually use in this house.
We got a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg.
I probably should have got you a stir or something.
No, this is fine. It's fine. Just a little bit sprinkling on top. It's definitely on the sweeter side.
Okay.
It's very smooth. The spice is very good. I mean, it's fresh. We know that. That's a nice touch.
Okay. We're gonna call him the sommelier of nog.
The sommelier of nog is extremely good, and I'm taking that title forever.
You can have it.
This podcast was already a good decision. I'm getting some nog in me. I got a new title. This is good stuff. Yeah, it's smooth. It's sweet. There's a lot of vanilla in the nog itself. And it's definitely on the lighter side.
Okay.
It's not... You can kind of see it. You can kind of see it the way it's moving. It's definitely on the thinner and lighter side.
Okay.
Which is not unwelcome. I feel like a lot of times you get a very thick nog.
Yeah. I wonder if I don't know if alcohol... I mean, for my podcast viewers who don't particularly know me, I actually don't drink. So I don't actually know whether the alcohol would actually affect how the nog itself handles, and I wonder if the alcohol makes it thicker, thinner.
I feel like it's gotta make it thinner. I don't know for certain, but I feel like it's gotta thin it out because you've got the thick egg yolks and the heavy cream.
Yeah.
All of the ingredients except the alcohol are very thick by nature.
Don't worry about the table. Don't worry about the tablecloth. That's why we have this here. It's a tablecloth that goes right in the wash after this. So let's score it out of a 10. How would you rate this particular nog?
I would probably put it at like a 7.5. It was definitely good. I didn't love it. It didn't blow my mind, but it was a solid, and it was definitely drinkable.
Okay.
Which is sometimes a rarity for nog. I find it sometimes more of a one and done beverage.
But that's one you might pick up again.
Yeah, I would definitely pick that up again. Okay. I don't know that I would. I probably wouldn't use it in. I probably wouldn't spike it.
Okay.
Because it was so thin that it might get watery.
Mm.
But it's definitely one that I would just drink. I would probably use it to dip cookies in.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't spice it again actually, because it was so thin that I feel like it's almost just milk. It's almost like a milk.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. We got a 7.5 on the first one. So here we go on to the second nog.
All right. Now this one, I'm going to give it a sip unspiced and then add the spice in. You can see what I'm saying, because if I move this one around, you can see this one is much thicker.
Yeah. This
is definitely a thicker nog. Oh, that's very good. Yeah. Yep, that is a lot. Here's the thing about eggnog is the things that I would say to praise it oftentimes sound disgusting even to me.
Okay.
But this is definitely eggier than that one. This is a lot thicker and creamier and eggier. It's got a richer flavor. I am going to spice this one because it's less of a drink and more of a dessert. So I'm gonna put a little
Wow.
bit
Okay.
of cinnamon.
So wow. So we're dessert like. All right.
Yeah. Like that one I would just put in a glass. This one would definitely be like on its. That one I might do with like a cookie, and this one is definitely like on its own. So I'm gonna swivel that around a little bit. That's very, very good. Yeah, with the spices added in, like that's a dessert. This is like a pastry. It's extremely good. I like this. Yeah, it's a lot thicker than the other one. It's got more flavor. It's not quite as it's way more flavorful. It's got more cream. I can taste the egg more.
Okay.
And it is definitely more of a sipping drink.
Okay.
That one I'd probably give like an 8.5.
Okay. It's an 8.5 on that one, right? Okay. So now we are going to move on to Glass C. Glass C.
A little bit thinner than B. It's moving around a little bit more. Not getting a lot of scent on it, which is sometimes a surprise for eggnog. Sometimes you can really that vanilla really hits you. Oh, that's milk. This is the thinnest of all. This is even thinner than A, which I thought was pretty thin. And I'm not in love with that. I gotta say, like coming from a thicker one, it's not winning me over.
Okay.
A little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg. Yeah, it's so thin that it just feels like I could just chug this. And I don't know how I feel about that in terms of an eggnog.
So I'm gonna put down the term chuggable.
Chuggable. It's definitely it's a crushable eggnog.
Maybe they should put it in a can. You just do a shotgun and eggnog around the holidays.
I would definitely shotgun an eggnog. Which I hope my doctor never sees this. I don't think a health professional ever needs to hear the words shotgun and eggnog, but yeah, that one's almost too thin for me.
Okay.
I'd probably put that at like a 4.5.
Okay, so 4
or 5. I'd say a straight 5.
So what about the actual flavors in it?
It is
because that's probably the first one you said that you really didn't pick up a lot of flavor.
I'm not getting a lot of flavor. I'm getting milk in it.
Okay.
Like I'm getting a little cream. I'm not really getting any egg. Like I'm getting a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of cream, but like that egg is really missing in a way that like I was even getting a little bit of it in A, even though A was also very thin.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to our fourth and final here and see what
it's on the thicker side.
Here, yeah. You can definitely see how it hangs on the glass. Each one of them has a little bit of a thicker or thinner consistency.
Yeah.
And when you look at C, which has been sitting here now,
C is already
there's nothing on the side of the
even
glass.
A is lingered a little bit,
and
B is like
B is stuck to the side of the glass, and you can't see through that at all.
So this one you can see is a little bit on the thicker side. It's got a lot more flavor than C, probably a little less than B.
Okay.
It's definitely a little more of a dessert than a drink. Put a little spice in there. I'm getting a lot of vanilla. And the cream is coming through in a big way. But I'm still getting a little bit of that egginess, which I wasn't getting from C. So I added the spice.
So there's definitely more egg. Okay.
Yeah. Or at least egg flavor. I don't know if any, I don't know how many of the carton mass-produced eggnogs actually go full egg, but I'm getting at least more eggy flavor.
Yeah.
Oh, that goes really nicely with the spice, actually.
Okay.
The heavy vanilla, really, really pairs nicely with the cinnamon and the nutmeg. It just really makes it, even more so probably than B, the spices really make this one.
Okay.
So without the spice, I'd probably put this at a 6, and then probably right up there was a 7.5 with the spice.
So 7.5. I mean, because most people spice it, so we're going...
You're going to spice it, so
we're
yeah.
Gonna go 7.
That's a 7.5 right there. That's a solid... That's really nice.
Okay, so let's review here then. You gave a 7.5 to A. You said it was kind of a really sweet and smooth.
Yeah.
Great with the spice.
Yep.
With some vanilla, but it was a little lighter and probably not spikeable.
Yeah, probably wouldn't spike that one. I might spike D, but I'm not certain.
Okay. So we'll review A then. A is the Turkey Hill eggnog.
Okay.
That is the Turkey Hill brand eggnog. Straight out of the little pint
for their ice cream.
Yeah. So I figured the cream of eggnog would have been a good bet for Turkey Hill because
Yeah.
they are pretty well known in that
Yeah.
area.
And that would probably. I'm not gonna necessarily project my thought like the artistic interpretation onto a creamery, but like that definitely tastes like something that I probably would have. It's kind of like I said, I would like dip a cookie in it.
Right.
I could definitely see if I were to make like a milkshake, a Turkey Hill eggnog milkshake would be fantastic.
Okay.
Because it's thin and it's gonna like break up that ice cream a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's still like it had enough eggnog flavor and it paired well enough with the spice that it would be just with some vanilla or some like butter pecan ice cream. It would be delicious.
Okay, there we go. So Turkey Hill's definitely up there high on the list.
I was definitely a fan
for anybody out there listening. So this is also a good review for anybody
Yeah.
out there who's trying to find out what nog might be good and doesn't want to just grab every nog. So we're doing you a public service here, folks. So.
This is a little preview of what you're gonna get on the Talking Nogcast 2K17.
So the next one, B, it was definitely thicker. We can tell by looking at it right here.
Yeah, it's still. It's still cloud. The glass is still cloudy, which is a big plus.
You gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It was eggier, creamier, more of a dessert and a pastry almost, like you said.
Yeah.
Great sipping drink.
Oh, beautiful sipping drink. I could sip that for an evening.
Okay, well, you can definitely now. I mean, now that we've had it, you can enjoy now.
This is of the four. This is the one that I'm going to sit with for the rest of the podcast.
That is the Jack Daniel's eggnog.
You know, that doesn't surprise me because this is probably the one that I would most likely spike.
Okay.
Because it's the thickest and it's probably the slowest drinking.
Yeah, so they worked it well to
I
make it with it.
I would definitely put alcohol into this. I probably wouldn't into some of the others.
Okay. Now we move on to C.
Yes.
This was the one you weren't a terrible fan of.
It was my least favorite of the bunch.
It was thinnest. We might be able to shotgun a can of it, even though I don't know if that's something I could watch.
It, but like I would do it.
I don't know if I can even watch that.
I do it for the podcast, and then when my wife asks what I did for the podcast, I would say nothing.
Something totally different.
I would say don't worry about it.
Totally didn't chug a can of eggnog. That is actually Silk eggnog.
Huh.
Silk
that
makes an
makes
eggnog.
Sense. You know what? That makes sense. Because there wasn't egg in it, and I could tell.
And the milk you said you tasted is also non-existent because this is the soy milk version. So there's
that makes sense.
Non-dairy egg. So this is non-dairy eggnog for any of you out there who are non-dairy, lactose intolerant, any of the above. Silk does make a eggnog.
I probably wouldn't recommend it. I think you're better off. I've seen some very good. This is actually the one thing that I said I would research because it was something that I was like when somebody asked me, I was like, that's actually a really good question. I've been researching vegan eggnog recipes or like non-cream based eggnog recipes, and like that feels like just putting eggnog spice in Silk, which didn't really work for me. But I've heard dates. I've heard if you like grind or process dates into like sort of a syrup, it creates a thickening agent that would be really good.
Okay.
Maybe even if you put it into the Silk. Like, just, it needs something to give it more of the eggnog consistency.
Yeah, because that was the one you definitely said was thin. You can almost see, I can see actually the way, it's a little, well, it's definitely not going to come up on camera, but you can actually see the light goes way farther down into that than any of the other ones. The other ones, it just stops at the surface, but you can see the light even going farther into it. But there is non-dairy eggnog out there for folks, so if you are non-dairy but like the taste, just can't have the dairy, Silk does have an answer for you. And we move on to our last eggnog, which you said was thicker, more flavor. You got a lot of praise for this one. Great with the spice, more dessert, and definitely more egg flavor. And that would be the Wawa brand of eggnog.
That makes sense. I've always been a fan of their eggnog. I think it's a good store-bought eggnog, so that doesn't surprise me.
I could definitely see from your response that you fell for this eggnog. It was almost like there was a premonition, as though your Facebook picture didn't already have you with one of those.
Jugging. Wow, that's a good Facebook photo. That's a year-round Facebook photo.
So who'd have thought that, one that you did have a lot of praise for even just a store-bought pint of eggnog was the Wawa brand eggnog, so...
Now, we didn't have it in the 4 here, but the other eggnog that I would recommend in terms of store-bought is Trader Joe's makes a very good eggnog.
Okay.
It reminds me a lot of the Jack Daniel's. It's thick, it's creamy, it's got a lot of flavor to it, and it's Trader Joe's, so it's like cheap. It's like Wawa price for a very good eggnog.
Okay, perfect. So, there we go, folks. There's your eggnog reviews. So... if there's a particular eggnog you're looking for, a particular flavor, or one you just can't get. I believe this one, and I may actually have had to correct myself. I believe this may actually be Southern Comfort eggnog.
Okay.
I may be up the one tree again. I don't drink. There you go. That shows
either
you.
way, this is a good.
Yeah,
this is an alcohol.
I believe, yeah,
branded one.
Yeah, and this was actually available at Acme. For any of you looking, they have a refrigerated end cap full of eggnog.
Good.
So for if you are looking,
tis the season.
Exactly. So you can get your eggnog, and you will be all set for the season.
I love eggnog.
We can tell. I think most of our viewers who might be watching this are
probably
well aware of that fact. So I'm gonna geek it up a little bit.
Let's do it.
So I ask all my guests, what is your favorite video game? Now this can be, I mean, take it all the way back to an arcade game that you have to put quarters into if you pass by it. A game that if you sell back your console, you're keeping that disc no matter what. Anything along those lines. But if it's a series, give me one.
Very specific.
Give me one.
It's actually kind of an easy question. It is Marvel vs. Capcom 2: New Age of Heroes.
Okay.
It's my favorite of all time.
Awesome.
It has the best roster. I like I like the way that the 3-on-3 combat feels.
Right.
It feels it feels the way that I want fighting games to feel.
Okay.
It gives me it is the one game that I actually enjoy. I love fighting games on the surface, but I do not have the dexterity or the technical understanding or the willingness to research to understand hitboxes and to understand all of the things that I need to understand to be good at them.
Yeah.
But I like them, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is the only game that makes me want to pursue that level of technical know-how.
Yeah, they go deep.
They
go very deep.
And the roster's great. It has Dan Hibiki, who is my favorite video game character ever in any platform ever.
I learned this very recently, so...
I love Dan Hibiki so much. He's great.
I gotta say, good choice of game, too, because Marvel vs. Capcom, the original, is, and I point this out probably during every podcast for some reason or another, was the second game that I put onto my main cabinet, which is just off camera over there. Because it was just games that, I was like, oh, get this ROM and get that. That was the second one that I was like, I want to make sure it works. I want to make sure that ROM runs, and that was the second game that I had to get was Marvel vs. Capcom.
I love all of the Marvel vs. Capcom series. I love all of them, even 3 and Infinite, even though they're vastly different games than the first two. But 2 has my favorite roster. It has the most. It doesn't have a story mode, which is a big knock against it. But the amount of characters that I can play and the amount of assists and cool stuff in it makes it worth it. It compensates for the lack of a real story mode.
There you go. And since you're one of the first ones that's actually, well, I guess it was arcade based. Since you're probably the first one that's actually had an arcade answer, about how much do you think you've dropped into this game in the arcade?
Not a ton, because we had it for PlayStation 2 for a long time.
Right, because it did come out right around then.
My roommate at the time, he bought it. He had it. We played it for months. It was the only game that we played. We played it with my roommate. When he was away at class, I would play it with other friends. I logged a lot of hours on the PlayStation 2 Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Okay.
However, then my roommate, who if you're watching this, Jeremy, I'm still mad at you. It has been 8 years and I'm still upset. He sold it because it turned out that at the time, I don't know if you remember this, but they took Marvel vs. Capcom 2 out of print.
Right. And
so it shot up to $150 overnight because they were like, we don't have any more. So finding a copy of that meant and so my roommate was like, I wanted $150. I'm not going to keep this game, even no matter how fun it is. Right. I'll get other video games, but this one is worth a lot of money.
Right, and college kid or whatnot. Yeah, of course, $150 is it's a lot of ramen.
Yeah. So he sold it. So since then, I've probably put in. And this is in terms of Barcade, where everything is 1 quarter. Right. I've probably put in $20 of quarters into this game because I play it. It's the one game that I go and play every single time I see it at an arcade. Yeah. And I play it until I run out of quarters.
It's a good choice. Great game.
I love that
Fantastic
game. I love it.
And they're still working it with Capcom 3 and everything like that, so that that it's decent enough that they still want to keep releasing them. So that tells you something about it.
I've been meaning to. I've heard Infinite is very good, and it looks very good, and I'd like to look into it. I do have a moral stance that I refuse to play any video game that doesn't include Dan Hibiki, but I might break it for Marvel vs. Capcom because I have an emotional connection to the series.
Okay, well, Capcom, get Dan Hibiki in there. You got sales coming. Everybody loves Dan.
They just announced the season 3 Street Fighter 5 characters, and I got very upset because Dan wasn't in it.
Still not. Huh?
But Sakura and Blanca who are Dan's canonical best friends. So at least I get to feel emotional about friendship.
Maybe they're working them in for.
I'm hoping season 4.
The timeline. Yeah.
Season 4.
So before the podcast, I had you sit down with the 11 circles,
yes,
which I've given to every one of my guests, and I give you about 5 minutes, and I say to draw what comes to mind in 5 minutes. So I'm going to bring that up for everybody watching. So here's what we got from Jeff. So
yes,
we've got a bit of a seasonal one here today.
I've been feeling the season lately. It's on my mind.
So we've got the Christmas tree and the Christmas ball on the top with the shading, which is very nice. Very nice. Not a lot of people have taken the time to shade some of these. So
I try.
I appreciate the effort.
You need to make it look like an orb, or else it's just going to look like I colored it red.
Just colored a ball. Yeah. So my guests appreciate the effort as well. They can definitely see it, I'm sure.
I do it for you.
And then we go to the superheroes here. So now we're right into Superman and Green Lantern. So I'm guessing two favorites.
They are my Superman is my favorite fictional character. Even apologies to Dan Hibiki, who I love dearly, but Superman is my everything. And Green Lantern has always been a favorite of mine. I used to have a Green Lantern shirt that I treasured, and I got rid of it, and I need to get another one because I like it a lot. But yeah, Superman and Green Lantern are two of my favorites. They've always been two of my favorites. Superman, it means a lot to me, and I'm not going to get emotional about it. But I could. Know that I could, and I have on other podcasts.
Well, I'm not a big comic guy.
No,
I'm not. Sadly, I'm not. I mean, I watched some of the Superman's, oh my god, I almost just said Keanu Reeves. Christopher Reeves.
Okay.
The Christopher Reeves movies back in the day. Because I grew up through the 80s and stuff. Sure. So to watch those movies, that was kind of what I was brought up with, and to see those, and not being a big comic book guy, but that was kind of how I pictured Superman. And
Christopher Reeve's interpretation of Superman defines the character for a very long time, and I think there's still a lot of his interpretation of it still rings true to the character in a way that is better than neck snapping Zack Snyder Superman.
But what about Green Lantern? So I gotta ask, since there was a ton of controversy, even not being a big comic book guy, how did you feel about the Ryan Reynolds movie?
I thought it was I thought it had potential, and there's a great movie. There's about 20 minutes of a better movie right there in the middle.
Okay.
Because the part where he goes off to Oa and trains to be a Green Lantern is cool. And if they had just done that, if that had been the movie, I always say get ready for some quality mouth noises because I chose to drink eggnog on a podcast. The thing I always say is I always point to the Marvel movies and I say, the reason they're effective is because they don't make superhero movies. They make genre movies that have superheroes in them.
Okay.
Ant-Man isn't a superhero movie, right? Ant-Man is a heist film in which one of the characters' heist gimmick is that he has superpowers. Captain America is a World War II adventure serial in which one of the characters is Captain America. And I think if they had done that with Green Lantern, if they had said, we're going to make an outer space adventure movie in the vein of a Star Wars or a Lost in Space, except the lead character happens to get inducted into the space police, I think that would have been a phenomenal film. And we see the seeds of that when he goes off and there's these big foreign locations and weird scenes and cool looking aliens, and then he goes back to Earth and it's not cool anymore.
So all the production went into that block.
Yeah.
And then it was just filming on location or whatever.
And then it's just filming in backlots. And it doesn't do it for me. But I thought it had potential. And I thought he wasn't a bad choice. I mean, obviously he went on to be Deadpool and was great at it. He wasn't a bad choice to be a superhero. It just felt like they didn't know what they wanted him to do or be.
Right. So it just sounds like they almost didn't flesh out the movie itself as
yes.
opposed to him being the character. I mean, I loved Ryan Reynolds in a lot of his movies.
I'm a Ryan Reynolds fan.
The fact that somebody laid into that was, I was like, okay, everybody kind of shredded it.
And there's a clip. The movie never gets up to. There's a particular YouTube video that might still be online. I don't know if they've taken it down, but there's a clip of him from Comic-Con the summer Green Lantern came out, where an 8-year-old kid walks up to the camera, or goes up to the microphone. They're taking a Q&A, and like an 8-year-old kid comes up and is like, "Can you do the Green Lantern oath?" And he just leans into the microphone and does it with like such gravity and purpose that the movie itself never aspires to.
Wow.
It's one of those moments where I'm like, you could have been in a better Green Lantern movie than what they gave you. It's also how I feel about Henry Cavill and Superman. Is I've heard him talk about the character of Superman, and I'm like, why is the movie that they made for you this? Why is Man of Steel the movie that they made? Because it's another case where an actor gets it on a level where the movie around him doesn't.
Okay, makes sense. So it's a shame. I mean, it's a shame when a movie. I've seen some movies that I thought were going to be better. That just I mean, the hype behind it. There wasn't even a lot of hype behind the Green Lantern movie.
Yeah, it kind of immediately people kind of came out and realized that it wasn't going to be good, and so there was a lot of like a lot of dread to it. There's a lot of like, oh, is this gonna suck? Yeah, it's gonna suck.
Well, but then I got to ask about the blue one.
I was trying to draw the Party of One logo.
Oh, okay.
And got about halfway into it and realized I don't actually know what my own logo looks like. I couldn't remember if it's a white one on a blue background or a blue background or a blue one on a white background. I realized after the fact that it's definitely a white one on a blue background with Party of around it. So I did not get it correct, but that was what I was aiming for.
Well, everybody here who's checking this out should definitely go out and check out Party of One podcast. If you don't already, definitely check it out. I'm going to put links below to the Party of One podcast, as well as a Twitter, anything else that he'll give me. So we'll definitely have all that posted.
Yeah, I'll give you all those links. You can find them all in the show notes below. It's good. There's an episode for no matter what kind of story you like, there's probably an episode to tell that kind of story. Which is one of the things I really like about the show, is that because it's two people and I'm flexible with my storytelling, like we can go in so many vastly different directions. We've had episodes where I am laughing until I'm crying, and then we have episodes where I'm just legitimately crying by the end of an episode. Like, we have scary, silly, there's a few sexy ones in there. It's good. It's a good show.
Well, everybody get out, check it out. Please check out the Party of One podcast. You'll definitely enjoy it from a gamer's perspective, from a D&D guy who's got books in the other room. Trust me, get out, check it out. You'll definitely enjoy it. So what I do want to do is I got to bring the podcast down a little bit, as I do in every part of this podcast, always at the end. I do ask everybody, if you were to die today, if you had died, how would you feel about the life you've led? Not particularly saying I haven't accomplished everything.
Sure.
We're both, we're both in our 30s and such. So
sure.
But how would you feel about the life that you've led? How would you feel about the mark you've left on everything and people?
That's a very good question. I think I would feel pretty okay with the impact that I've had on other people. That's how you carry on after you are gone, is through the people around you. And I think
student loan debt.
Sally Mae will chase down anybody they can on that. I think I feel pretty good about that. I think that other people, I feel like as I have been lifted by other people, I think I have lifted other people up. And I think that I would feel pretty good about other people carrying on in my image.
Awesome. It's good to hear, because a lot of people, they get kind of mixed emotions about that. They're not sure how they're not sure they're happy with the way they've lived their life. They don't, which I've tried to tell people, if you're not 100% happy with the way you're living your life, do something about it. You don't want to be remembered as just at your funeral is, oh, he was a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say a lot. You know, you wanna be remembered. And a few episodes ago, Lemaire Lee mentioned a woman whose funeral he was at, and someone was there at that funeral who had passed away, and the woman had met her once at a Sprint store, and was at her funeral and couldn't even hold it together. And I mean, if you can touch lives like that, or even
Right.
close to that, that's a decent way to live your life.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's good to see somebody
Yeah.
like yourself who's trying to leave an imprint on people, which is great.
Yeah, and I think that I have had an impact on people, and I think that I have made something in the work that I have made. I have made something that when I am gone, I will feel happy that it will still be there.
Awesome.
There is something that will carry on past me, and I feel pretty good about it.
Awesome, great. So what I'm gonna have you look at, as I have
Cool.
all of our guests look at, is an ink blot. I make all
Cool,
these
cool,
ink
cool.
blots custom for each guest. I
Cool.
make a special ink blot. They're all made by me. They're not out of a catalog of special ink blots. They're not gonna say anything particular. It's not if you
Sure.
see one thing, it's like, well, we need to get you help.
Sure.
So your particular ink blot, which we're gonna bring up for our viewers, is this.
All right.
So you can feel free, flip it if there's some other way you see it or anything like that. But what do you see in this particular image? This is one of the more detailed ones that I think I've had on here yet. So it's definitely, as everybody can see below here, it does have a lot more texture, a lot more detail, and there's a lot of image to it. So. And I can actually I'll probably flip it for everybody here in a moment.
The bottom half, which is, so I guess it would be the top half.
Yeah. So I just flipped it for everybody to see there.
If you're looking at the top half,
okay,
right where the two lines almost reminds me of like hip bones.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting hip bones in the bottom half, but altogether it kind of reminds me of, I don't remember the particular race of Star Wars alien that it reminds me of, but there's a very particular one. They've got this. No, you know what it reminds me of? There's a spaceship that it reminds me of. There's a video game called Starship Hector.
Okay.
For the Nintendo. It's not a very good game. I wouldn't recommend you go look it up. But the design of this reminds me of the design of the spaceship from that. Like it has the sort of right. Front piece, the engines on the back. That's sort of the design that it reminds me of.
Okay. I saw, I guess, for me was the opposite way. I did see a bit of a face in that one. I saw kind of an old, sad face.
Yeah, I can see that.
With kind of closed, tired eyes and a raggedy, worn out kind of face.
Facing it the way that they see it on the YouTube, it reminds me of a sad rabbit.
Oh yeah, definitely see a rabbit. Yeah,
because it's got the sad eyes and it's got the little nose and it's drooping. It reminds me of specifically a sad bunny rabbit.
Yeah, that's two rabbits in a row. Actually, for people who are watching, that's two rabbits. Last week's podcast, which hasn't aired at the time of us talking here, but they will see when they see this. They will see definitely another rabbit image, which is very strong in that image too. So, but yeah, these are.
That's what. Yeah, I think facing it this way, now I'm not seeing anything other than the sad rabbit.
Yeah,
poor little guy.
Yeah, he's definitely got. It's almost a little bit of like a droopy dog face too, with the jowls. I definitely see the jowls on the side, but the eyes, they're very. They definitely grab me. The strength of those sad weepy.
Yep, I see it.
But that is yours to keep, sir.
All
that is your ink blot.
Spectacular.
And I want to thank you for being here.
This has been fun.
On this holiday episode of the In Your Head podcast. This has been
super fun. Thank you.
And I hope you enjoyed the eggnog. And
I greatly enjoyed the eggnog.
I'm glad it wasn't all awful. I don't know a lot about eggnog, so I
thought it was all very good store-bought eggnog. I mean, nothing quite matches homemade. The one time that I've had homemade eggnog. I don't know why I say that as though like I've had a bunch of homemade eggnog.
I almost wish I had a homemade eggnog to see how you would have rated
that. Would have made. I can't tell you if you would have had to have done that and not told me, because the second I'd have known that one of these is
Oh no, I wouldn't
homemade-
have. It would have been totally blind, like we did,
Oh,
like we
my
snuck in a
God.
silk one. But
No, this is bad. Oh, is it? Tell me more, Jeff.
Well, that's what it would. That would have been the best if. But knowing nothing about eggnog, I wouldn't have been able to make a good eggnog, and like we said, I probably would have killed you. So there's a good potential of that
Well,
happening.
I guess I'm glad that you didn't make me eggnog.
Yeah, so it's all good. So everybody, please subscribe to the videos down below. Please, it helps me out a lot, motivates me to keep bringing these out to you. Check out the Party of One podcast, and definitely check out the Talking Nog podcast, which hopefully at the time of this airing should be out
It should be out.
and I'll definitely have a link to it below, so you could go check it out. So check out Jeff; he's great. His podcasts are a lot of blast to watch for all you gamers out there. And thank you again, sir, for joining me.
This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir. And to all my viewers out there, always remember, don't forget your toilet poncho. Have a good night.